Supreme Chancellor Xithra had spent 40 years climbing the political hierarchy of the Galactic Council, her crystalline form reflecting the accumulated wisdom of 4 decades in interstellar diplomacy. She understood the delicate balance between species, the careful treaties that kept trade flowing and wars at bay. She knew every protocol, every precedent, every unwritten law that governed civilized space, which made her current situation all the more terrifying. "Repeat the transmission," she commanded, though her translator matrices had processed the message perfectly the first time. The hologram flickered to life, showing Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Terran Federation Navy. The human woman's face was carved from stone, her dark eyes holding depths of fury that made Xithra's light resonance chambers flicker with involuntary fear. "This is Admiral Martinez, to all Galactic Council vessels and installations," the recording began, each word delivered with surgical precision. 72 hours ago, Council security forces fired upon and destroyed the civilian transport New Hope in neutral space. Aboard that vessel were 47 human children, ranging in age from 6 to 16, along with their teachers and guardians, en route to the Kepler colony's educational exchange program. Xithra's secondary processors ran probability calculations that she desperately wished would stop. The numbers were catastrophic. No survivors were recovered. No distress calls were answered. No quarter was given to a clearly marked civilian vessel carrying miners. Admiral Martinez's voice carried the same tone one might use to discuss weather patterns, but the subharmonics made several species representatives physically recoil from their displays. "The Council has violated the first law. The consequences begin now." The transmission ended, leaving the Council chambers in absolute silence. Representatives from 43 species sat motionless, each processing the implications in their own way. The Andromedans' bioluminescent patches had gone completely dark. The Centauri delegation was emitting stress pheromones so intense that atmospheric scrubbers couldn't compensate. Even the notoriously calm crystalline communes were generating harmonic frequencies that sounded suspiciously like funeral dirges. "Perhaps," ventured Ambassador Keltar of the Rigelian Republic, his voice artificially steady, "we should review exactly what transpired during the eye incident." Commander Voss stepped forward, his reptilian features showing the strain of the past 3 days. The New Hope was detected in Sector 47 Alpha, approaching Council space without proper documentation. Standard protocols were followed. Warning shots were fired. When the vessel failed to respond appropriately to boarding commands, Security Chief Morvek authorized decisive action. "Decisive action," repeated Xithra slowly, "against a ship full of children. We had no way of knowing." "The vessel was broadcasting standard civilian identification codes," interrupted the vegan delegate, his normally harmonious tones sharp with accusation. "Educational transponders were active. The ship's manifest was filed with 3 different traffic control authorities." Security Chief Morvek claimed the codes could have been falsified, Voss replied defensively. "Recent piracy incidents required heightened security measures." Xithra felt her light cores dim with despair. She knew Security Chief Morvek, a hegemony enforcer from the old school, the type who saw military solutions to every problem. He'd probably viewed the civilian transport as a convenient opportunity to demonstrate Council authority to the increasingly independent human territories. Now he'd doomed them all. "Has anyone explained to the commander exactly what the first law means?" she asked quietly. The silence stretched until Ambassador Theiss spoke, her insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. Perhaps some clarification would be beneficial for the newer Council members. Xithra accessed her historical databases, pulling up files that most species preferred to forget. The first law was established 112 years ago, following what humans call the Titan colony incident. A hegemony patrol, discovered unauthorized human settlements on 3 moons of Titan Major. Believing the colonists to be claim jumpers, they bombed the settlements from orbit. The holographic display showed archival footage of the aftermath: scorched earth, twisted metal, and carefully arranged burial sites marked with simple stone cairns. 137 human civilians died that day. 41 of them were children under the age of 18. Xithra's voice took on the formal cadence of historical recitation. The human response was unprecedented. More footage filled the chamber. Terran Federation warships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Entire hegemony fleets simply disappearing. Fortress worlds falling not to siege, but to something worse: systematic, methodical extinction of every hegemony military asset in known space. The war lasted 16 days, Xithra continued. Humanity destroyed 47 military installations, crippled 3 entire fleets, and eliminated the hegemony as a galactic power. But they followed one rule throughout: no civilians were harmed. No non-combatants were targeted. Only those who had participated in the bombing or who actively resisted humanitarian aid efforts. The recordings showed Terran medical ships tending to wounded hegemony soldiers. Human engineers rebuilding civilian infrastructure on occupied worlds. Federation diplomats negotiating generous terms for surrender that included war crimes, tribunals, and reparations. When the fighting ended, humanity called a special session of what would become the Galactic Council. They made a simple declaration: harm our children and face the consequences. Harm anyone else and we'll seek diplomatic solutions. But touch our young and we will end you. Ambassador Keltar shifted uncomfortably. Surely that was hyperbole. A negotiating position. Subsequent events proved otherwise. Xithra replied grimly. The Andromedan vegan conflict of 94 years ago. When Andromedan forces targeted a vegan nursery colony, humanity intervened within 6 hours. The Andromedan 7th Fleet ceased to exist. The conflict ended that same day. The Crystalline Rebellion 70 years ago. When rebel forces took a human school station hostage, thinking to use the children as leverage against Terran intervention in their civil war, humanity's response was to glass the rebel strongholds from orbit and then personally deliver the children home with full honors. The Regelian pirates' mistake 40 years ago, when they attacked what they thought was a cargo hauler, but turned out to be carrying human students on a field trip. The pirates' entire organization was extinct within a week. Each example sent fresh waves of anxiety through the assembled representatives. The pattern was unmistakable: attack human children, face complete destruction. No negotiations, no mercy, no survivors among those responsible. So when I ask about Security Chief Morvek, Xithra said softly, understand that I'm not asking about one officer's career prospects. I'm asking about whether our civilization will exist next week. The chamber's main display activated, showing real-time sensor data from across Council space. Xithra's worst fears were being confirmed by the minute. Terran Federation fleets were moving. Not just a few ships, entire armadas that had been thought to be in mothball storage were powering up throughout human space. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures consistent with humanity's most advanced warship designs, vessels that theoretically existed only in classified intelligence reports. Incoming transmission from all Council worlds announced the communications array. Xithra authorized the feed and immediately regretted it. The reports flooded in from across Council space: human diplomatic missions evacuating their staff, trade agreements being suspended, cultural exchanges being terminated. Humanity was withdrawing from galactic civilization with the methodical precision of a species preparing for total war. They're not bluffing, whispered Ambassador Keltar. They're actually going to do it. They're going to tear down everything we've built. Not everything, Xithra corrected sadly. They'll leave the civilian infrastructure intact. They'll probably ensure minimal casualties among non-combatants. But every military asset, every government installation, every symbol of council authority. She gestured helplessly at the tactical displays showing Federation fleet movements. We have perhaps 60 hours before the first wave arrives. What do we do? Demanded Commander Voss. Zithra considered the question that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. They could fight and lose everything in a war against an enemy that had proven they could end starfaring species with frightening efficiency. They could flee and watch their entire political structure collapse as humanity hunted down every individual involved in the attack. Or they could do something unprecedented in Council history. We surrender, she said quietly. Completely. Unconditionally. We turn over every individual involved in the attack on the New Hope. We submit to human justice. We beg for mercy and hope they remember that 43 species had nothing to do with the actions of a few zealots. Surrender the entire council? The alternative, Zithra said, watching more Terran fleets light up on the tactical display, is that there won't be a council left to surrender. As emergency sessions convened across the galaxy and diplomatic pouches flew between worlds at near light speed, Zithra reflected on the bitter irony. The first law had been designed to prevent exactly this scenario. Everyone knew the rule. Everyone understood the consequences. But arrogance and stupidity had proved stronger than wisdom. Now they would all learn why attacking human children was the one line in the galaxy that must never be crossed.